just what role did Iraq play in the action of al-Qaeda terrorists? Will Congress speak with one voice on the plan to attack Iraq, as the president says, or will Democrats refuse to sign a blank check, as they call it? Is Tom Daschle right? Is the president politicizing the debate on Iraq? And then there is the issue of Homeland Security. What's holding up the works on a bill? The White House has gone on a blitz with the message that there is a possible link between the Iraqi regime and the terrorist organization al-Qaeda. The question being asked now, is this new focus part of a Bush administration strategy to bolster its case against Saddam Hussein? CNN is reporting that what was once top-secret material is being cleared to help win congressional and international support to hold Saddam accountable. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld told reporters this week there was credible evidence that al-Qaeda members are in Iraq.
We have what we consider to be credible evidence that al-Qaeda leaders have sought contacts in Iraq who could help them acquire weapons of mass destruction capabilities.
We will learn about the congressional support for an attack on Iraq and then get a different perspective on the impact in that region of this threat of a U.S. military action. And it's all today on Sunday morning.
Now, from Channel 6, the most watched news station in the capital region. This is Sunday Morning with Liz Bishop.
Good morning. On Wednesday of this week, Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle did something he's not really known for. He got visibly upset on the floor of the Senate, accusing the president of politicizing the debate on Iraq. And that could have a significant impact on what kind of support the president gets in Washington.
We're making progress. We're near an agreement. And soon, we will speak with one voice.
That was the president trying to sound upbeat about the rift that's developed over his plan to go after Saddam Hussein. Democratic leaders say they will not give Mr. Bush a blank check and refuse to rush into anything.
We want to do this right. We don't care how quickly it's done, and
But the White House warned that Congress cannot afford to wait. The administration talked of a direct link between Saddam and al-Qaeda. National Security Advisor Condoleezza Rice says that Iraq provided the terrorist group with chemical weapons training as well.
Several of the detainees, in particular some high-ranking detainees, have said that Iraq provided some training to al-Qaeda in chemical weapons.
Intelligence officials note that to say al-Qaeda personnel have been in Baghdad is not saying much, since al-Qaeda is in 60 countries, including the United States. And other analysts point out that for years there's been no love lost between Muslim fundamentalists like those in al-Qaeda and the secular Iraqi regime, which in the past destroyed mosques and brutalized clerics. And joining us first today to talk about the situation in Iraq is Green Island Congressman Mike McNulty, a Democrat, we should point out. And thank you very much for being with us,
Sure.
Congressman. I think certainly the situation vis-a-vis the U.S. and Iraq is on the minds of every American right now, wondering what the impact is going to be, what the outcome of all this debate and posturing is going to be. Give us your sense of what's going on in Washington right now and then what you think will happen.
Well, what really solidified my position, Liz, is I went to an intelligence briefing about a week and a half ago. And I didn't learn a lot new, but it reminded me that Saddam does have chemical and biological weapons capabilities. He has a delivery system of over 400 miles. That threatens a lot of people in the region, most notably Israel. He is dangerously close to a nuclear capability. No one knows exactly how close. Some experts say as little as a year. And my point is that we need to act before he gets that capability, certainly. And making the argument that we should wait and to see what kind of a capability he has could endanger the lives of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So with regard to these military options, I always try to be very cautious because I know the pain of war. My brother was killed in Vietnam. I don't want to see any family go through what my family went through back in 1970. However, I also don't want to wake up next year and find that Saddam has killed hundreds of thousands of people and we could have done something about it and didn't do it. So I'm inclined to support the resolution to give the president the authority to take military action if all of these diplomatic efforts fail. And we are going to try some more diplomatic efforts. Mm-hmm. We are working very hard every day to get a UN resolution that we can get our allies to support. And we may very well try the weapons inspectors again, but I don't have high hopes that that's going to work. And I think the likely outcomes here are either that we get lucky and there is an internal overthrow of Saddam, which is a possibility, or that we take military action to take away his capabilities.
All right, my actual question was, and I appreciate your giving me your position, but what is going on in Washington right now? Is this the politicizing of what is a very serious issue to Americans, this debate on Iraq? Is it being politicized by the White House, or
I don't think, I don't
by
attribute
anybody?
that to anyone. The president made a statement at a fundraiser. It might have gone over the line, and there was an angry reaction. I think we ought to put all of the politics aside. This doesn't have anything to do with the Democratic or Republican parties of this election. We're talking about people's lives here. And people ought to be making this very serious judgment, each one of us, certainly, in the Congress, based upon what the facts are as we know them. And I think, in the end, that's what people will do, based upon the information they have. And what's going on right now is we're working on this resolution. It is being changed somewhat. It's being tightened up a bit to more specifically focus on Iraq. And it's going to talk about exhausting all of the diplomatic means before we go to a military action and giving Congress notification and so on, all of which is proper. But I do think that the resolution is going to be voted upon in the next 2 weeks.
However, not this week, which was originally thought. Do you
No,
think
and
it's been
probably
pushed
not
back
next week.
by
I
the
think
outburst by Tom Daschle?
No. I think it's. I think, in the overall scheme of things, it's probably going to happen as our last action before we take our next break. And realistically, that's probably within the next couple of weeks. And I think that's good because it also gives our constituents the opportunity to express their views.
What happens if, for any reason, something should happen in the meantime? I mean, the longer you delay, is there any sense of politics has pushed this off at all, and that, in fact, you may regret that at some point?
No, I think we're moving pretty quickly on it.
What about the blank check concept? Is there a fear by Democrats of giving the president, quote-unquote, that blank check?
I think you can try to overmanage in a resolution like this. After all, the president is charged with the conduct of foreign policy. He is the commander-in-chief. We can't have 535 secretaries of defense in this country. So I think we'll try to get the resolution as refined as possible, as focused as possible. But I still think the president, as commander-in-chief, needs very wide latitude. We
heard from Iraq this past week that they are willing to let the inspectors in with unfettered access, with agreeing to that very term. Is that not what we've been wanting? Well, we're pursuing that option in the UN resolution, and we may very well try that one more time. But I certainly would argue very strongly for a deadline as far as that is concerned, and not a long period of time. If he does not provide complete and unfettered access to any site that those inspectors want to see, I think we should pull them out of there and take the next step. We're talking today to Green Island Congressman Mike McNulty. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. And we are back talking about the situation with Iraq with Congressman Mike McNulty, a Democrat from Green Island. And as we speak, a congressional delegation, 3 members of Congress, have just arrived in Baghdad, apparently there to once again convince the Iraqis of the importance of giving unfettered access with the weapons inspectors. What is your impression of this? I mean, is there any real value to their being there? I don't think so. I think that the president ought to speak on our behalf as far as our foreign policy is concerned. Members of Congress have a right to do whatever they want to do. If they want to go over there and talk to him, that's fine. But they're not there as an official delegation. They're there on their own. How effective do you think sanctions have been? Well, I don't think they've been very effective at all up until now. We talk about going to war with Iraq, but aren't we, for all intents and purposes, waging it right now? In the past week, we've actually on Friday of this week, we heard of more attacks, and earlier in the week there were airstrikes as well. Well, we've had those skirmishes in the no-fly zones. Well, how do you characterize them then? Well, I characterize it as trying to contain Iraq as much as possible, but clearly we need to go much further than this. He has very dangerous capabilities. I really worry about that nuclear capability if he ever gets there, because other heads of states have those capabilities. The difference between them and Saddam is he's crazy enough to use them.
I don't know how anyone can envision containing a modern nuclear war. If you were to make an attack, it probably would be on Israel. Israel would respond. They have a nuclear capability. We would come to Israel's aid. Other nations would take sides. And all I can think of in a scenario like that is what Lyndon Johnson said when asked what would be the outcome of modern nuclear war. He just said the survivors will envy the dead. We cannot allow Saddam Hussein under any circumstances to have a nuclear capability. We need to take away his capabilities before he ever gets to that point.
Can we do that alone without any allies? And are we likely to face that situation?
We can militarily do that alone without anyone else. I don't think we should. And I think working for the international coalition is a good thing, not just to feel good or not that we need their military support, but for another practical reason. We can go in and do the military operation in Iraq. It's going to be more costly this time. They're not going to be sitting out in the desert waiting for us to carpet bomb them. There's going to be urban warfare. It's going to cost a lot more lives on both sides. The question, though, is, we can do it. The question is, what do you do next? After we're occupying the country and occupying Baghdad? There is going to be a need for peacekeepers in that country to support the new government, whatever it is, not for days or weeks or months, but for literally years. If you have a broad international coalition, then the peacekeepers can come from other countries and can come, indeed, from neutral countries after that. If you do it all by yourself, the peacekeepers for years would have to be all American military personnel, and I do not want to see large numbers of American military personnel bogged down in Baghdad for a period of years with big targets on their backs.
Toward the end of the week, Senator Ted Kennedy said that the president has still to make a convincing case. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, well, then what convinced you? I mean, what has he said that you would label a convincing case?
The convincing case is history. Saddam has already used weapons of mass destruction against his own people. He has chemical and biological capabilities. If you look at the Blair report of this past week, very, very specific and alarming about his capabilities. Again, various experts saying he could be within a year of a nuclear capability. Does anyone really want to argue that we should wait that year until he gets, or two, or whatever it is, to get the nuclear capability, to see what he does with it? I think the argument is we go get him and eliminate that capability before he can do anything with it.
When you say get him, do you...
Get him out of power.
Okay. You're not advocating...
That can happen in a number of ways. Well, that can happen in a number of ways. It could happen if we go to war. It could happen that way. He could flee the country. It could happen that way. There could be an internal overthrow, which is maybe not a likely, but a possible scenario, because elements of his army deserted before when they were on the run, and that could happen again if they see, especially not just the United States, but a strong international coalition coming together and they know what's going to happen. He could be overthrown from within. That's a possibility, and of course would be a very wonderful outcome on our part if that were to happen before we went to a military action.
Very quickly, will Congress support the president?
I believe the resolution will be voted upon within the next 2 weeks, and there will be a strong vote of support for the president.
Congressman McNulty, thanks so much for being with us. And we'll pick up our discussion in just a minute or two with an expert on Mideast affairs. We'll do that when we come back. And welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin is calling for a political solution to the Iraq crisis through existing UN resolutions, a move that could undermine U.S. demands for tough international action against Baghdad. The U.S. is pushing for a new UN resolution that would include tough language spelling out that Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein would face serious consequences if he failed to allow weapons inspectors to proceed with their work unhindered. Putin says resumption of UN inspections for chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons for the first time since 1998 would answer the concerns of the international community. And those remarks seem to soften any apparent siding with the United States that Russia's foreign minister might have done earlier in the week. And our next guest is an expert on Mideast affairs. Union College professor Dr. Stephen Burke is with us now. And where do you see this situation? Do you believe that, first of all, Congress will give the president all the authority that he wants, that there will be some kind of international coalition to take on Saddam, or are we going to be fighting alone, and we're going to be fighting our own country to fight alone?
I think Congress will eventually come along, and in the not-too-distant future, I think Congressman McNulty is right. I also think a lot of the foreign countries will eventually come along for one reason or another. President Putin, for example, for all of his talk now, I think we're going to pay him off. Not so much financially, and I'm not sure that this is the right thing morally to do, but we want Putin, we want Russia on board, certainly because of its veto power in the Security Council. I think what's going to happen is we're going to give Putin a free hand in Chechnya. He's been thirsting for this. He's been wanting to go after the Chechens, some of whom have gone into Georgia, and I think he's going to really sock it to them very hard, and we're going to give him that proverbial green light. As far as other countries are concerned, when it becomes apparent that the United States is going to act, and I think we will act, and as I've said on this program before, I think we should act, I think other countries like France and even Germany will in one fashion or another eventually come along. And the reason for that is when Iraq is rebuilt, there is going to be money to be made. The Russians are owed billions upon billions of dollars by the Iraqis. The French have massive investments in Iraq and will want to reap some rewards from Iraq. If we are allowed to go in alone, if they say you do it and you go in alone, they will get nothing. But if they do participate, especially in what comes after the regime change, they will get something. And as a result, I think that in the final analysis, they will come along.
They're hanging back now. Does that set them up to get any kind of quid pro quo out of the United States in terms of you support us on this and, for instance, the Chechnya deal, but other kinds of
I think they're
hot sweeteners?
Right. I think, well, actually, they're motivated by two things. One ought to be fair. One, I think, is they want to increase their bargaining power with the United States. As I said, they want to get something. The other, there is also, and there should be, of course, a natural reluctance to go to war. And I think that some of these governments may truly believe that by getting a resolution passed, maybe Saddam Hussein will comply in the way he's supposed to comply, and that war could be avoided. They also, at the very least, want coverage by the United Nations. They want to cover themselves. My problem with this, and I think the problem of the Bush administration, is I don't see how inspections are going to work. And I will give you a number of reasons for that. The first is we know that a lot of what he has is highly mobile. He's just going to go. We come in, and he's going to shift places from one to the next. The other is that Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the United Nations, made a terrible mistake back in 1998. He signed an agreement with Iraq that certain designated places, the so-called presidential places, where we think Saddam Hussein has put a good deal of this weaponry, the agreement that he signed with Iraq states that before there is any scrutiny or investigation of those presidential places, we must give the Iraqis warning. I mean, one doesn't have to be a rocket scientist
really,
to
or a great
understand.
weapons inspector.
That's right. To understand that that's just really not going to work.
Right.
There are other things involved here as well. They have to do with intelligence. Under the old terms, that is the old committee, received intelligence from the United States and Great Britain in any country, but that intelligence was given on a privileged basis. By that it was meant if the CIA gave one of those inspectors intelligence information, it was understood he would not necessarily share it with anybody else. Those terms under the new agreements simply do not work. Moreover, there was something called the loop. That is, we would provide the intelligence inspectors with information, they would act upon it, and then they would provide what they had seen back to us, which of course would enhance our intelligence apparatus. Today, it's a one-way street. The new terms of the new observation team provide for the fact that, yes, we can receive information from other countries, but we will not guarantee that we will not share it with anyone else, and we will not give back what we find to you.
We're going to stop right there. We're talking with Dr. Stephen Burke. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. And we're back now with Union College professor Stephen Burke. If the president gets the authority from Congress, what is our time frame then, Stephen?
From the vantage point of the Bush administration, I think that administration would hope that it would be very quickly. That is, get the resolution from Congress, go to the UN, get some sort of resolution from the UN, hopefully a tough resolution, and then send the inspectors in. And at the very, very first obstacle provided by Saddam Hussein, we would act. I would suspect that the president is shooting for the period after the first of the year, January and February, just as it was back in 1991.
What would the consequences of this be if, in fact, we do attack Iraq?
This is the most loaded question of all.